Hey, welcome everybody to Mumbles Community Council full council meeting for the 11th of January 2022. Thank you all for attending. I will get on with the agenda. Adam, I don't think we need to wear a mask when we're on screen. I don't know. Oh, you're on traveling about though. I forgot about that. Okay then, so if I go straight into the agenda for today's meeting, and thanks for all the members of the public for attending as well. So if we go to point 01, apologies for absence. Steve, what apologies for absence have you got?
Yeah, I've just had one apologies for absence. That's from Philip Reason.
Oh dear. Okay. Okay, just before we get into the full meeting, just to explain the sort of procedure to members of the public who are here today and how we intend to conduct the meeting, because we have had inquiries about people who would like to speak at the meeting. The format that we have for this is that we suspend the standing orders, which enables people from the floor to speak. Allocate up to 20 minutes for that. But I will do that after the chair's report, because I think some of the issues might be addressed in the chair's report. And I will do that after the chair's report. As this is, we will suspend standing orders. I will give it up to 20 minutes, and people will be expected to speak hopefully under 5 minutes, so different people get the opportunity to speak. But also, just to inform people of the format of this, it is not a question and answer session. It's not a dialogue session. People can make their statements. We will listen to them. If the response is appropriate here, if not, we can take it away, because obviously we cannot prepare all the information that we might need for the relevant responses. So, going on quickly to point 2, declarations of interest. Have we any declarations of interest from people on the floor? Rebecca Fogarty.
I think quite a lot of us will have a declaration of interest relating to the finance report. I don't quite know how it works, because we'll all have to leave. But anyway, I for one have received payment in the finance report, my remuneration.
Yeah, and mine.
Same here. And here.
Yeah.
Expenses here,
Yeah. Steve, how do you want to deal with that?
Well, it's unprecedented, so I'm not sure. I think we're just, there's no point excluding everyone since everyone's involved, and we just have to pass it, you know. So. Okay,
Will Thomas?
Yeah, what they do in Swansea Council is just take a block declaration, and it's you know, not a prejudicial interest. It's personal interest in a block declaration. So you just get everyone to raise your hands.
Yeah, well, that's the trouble is why councillors in our council have been doing it was because of an ombudsman decision about a cheque being made out to a councillor some years ago, where the ombudsman found that they should have declared a prejudicial interest, and hence why the custom and practice in our council on that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to go into it in much detail now, but I think it's a bit different because everyone has to take the £150 expenses now, don't they? Unless you state otherwise, so it's a bit different.
Down.
Okay, Steve, well, I think if we can just note this and note, obviously, all the individual councillors' interest in the item.
Yeah, as Will says, it's called a block declaration, so I'll do that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then. So then if we move on to item 3, minutes of the monthly meeting held on the 14th of December 2021. Anybody got any observations, any points they want to raise in relation to that? If not, can I propose that they're accepted as a true record? Rebecca Fogarty and Rob Marshall. So Steve, can you note that?
Thanks.
Okay. So if we move on now to the clerk's report. You want to give that, Steve?
Yeah, very briefly. Obviously, I've circulated to the councillors with the minutes. Happy New Year to everyone. Over and above what I put in, I need to report that on Friday, former councillor Louise Thomas resigned. Because we're within 6 months of an election, we don't have to advertise have an election, although you can, if you choose to, you can adopt someone onto the council to cover for Louise. I recommend that we don't go that way. It's because there's only a few months, and I'm sure you're quite capable of soldiering on with just 17 of you.
Okay, well, we can note that if any councillor's got any particular points of view on that one way or the other, or strongly one way or the other, if you could let myself and the clerk know. But I think I would probably echo Steve on that, because by the time, even if we go for, secondment or somebody co-opted onto the council, by the time we take the process forward, it'll probably be about another month or 2 months, and then we'll only have a few months to go. So anything else from the clerk's report, Steve?
Nothing I've got to add, unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions for the clerk? Rebecca Fogarty?
Trying to work out how to phrase this into a question, but I just note the positive feedback we've had about the basketball hoop at Yalton. And I suppose the question I would ask Steve is, please will you keep bringing us the feedback that you get, because it is great to hear it, especially when it's with such warm words of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, I certainly will, Rebecca.
Thank you for that. Ian, Scott?
Thank you, Chair. In the absence of you perhaps raising the matter concerning Councillor Louise Thomas, what I'd like to know is what actions are going to be taken regarding the resignation of Councillor Louise Thomas. And I would add that this is the 6th councillor to resign, and there is something amiss here. Is it a matter, Chair, that you are going to be raising in your report?
It is a matter that I will be raising on my report, not specifically about that particular councillor, but I will be raised in the matter. I will point out, Ian, that in the past 2 years, to my knowledge, only one councillor has resigned. One other councillor has resigned, and there are various reasons why councillors may resign.
Well, I'm not suggesting that one goes into the detail, the minutiae of why a person resigns. It's clearly apparent for anyone, any member of the public and any councillor at this meeting, why Councillor Louise Thomas has resigned. And what action is to be taken? That's the question, please.
I would question, Ian, that you are aware of all the details of maybe why Councillor Thomas has resigned, because there are certain things which have not been shared with the full council, as they are details which, for various reasons, cannot be shared with the full council. Did you want to come back on that, Ian?
I really don't understand the point that you're making there, to be perfectly honest.
Well, I think
it's in the public. Excuse me, if I can just finish, please.
Sorry.
It's in the public domain now, and people are asking the question, well, what is going on? And what I'm doing is asking the question, what are we going to do about it? Or what are you going to do and the clerk do about it?
Well, what are you saying, Ian? What is the point that you were making? I'm at a
Well,
loss for this.
certain councillors have been named, and you know, what is the are you going to look into this? Are you going to view it as a matter of a code of conduct?
I am looking into it as a matter of a code of conduct. But
So
as
you are going to be taking some action. Then that's the
as you
point.
sort of said, certain councillors have been named, but certain councillors also have the right to reply as well.
Well, I need to reply.
Richard Jarvis. Richard Jarvis? Where's he gone?
Turned his video off.
Maybe needed a loo break. That's fair enough.
Okay.
Maybe you need to ask me. How about that for a change? Or even actually say that you're sorry that I'm leaving.
Steve. People should not have the ability to come in at this point. Richard Jarvis?
Yeah, slight technical error there. Sorry, Chair. Right. I'm fairly new to the council. I've been on a couple of years, but it's been quite a shock at times how much time it can take up. And I think that is one reason why some people come into it and think either just do one term or leave. Because I've spoken to one person that left. There are a number of reasons, but one of them was the amount of time. Just that.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else got any points to raise? If not, then shall we go on to the chair's report? Okay, so this is my report for this month. Dear councillors, may I take this opportunity to wish you a happy new year and welcome you back to what will be the final year of this iteration of Mumbles Community Council. As we enter the new year, unfortunately, we appear to be facing a surge of the latest variant of COVID virus, which is posing significant challenges to us as a nation, as a community, and as individuals. And let us hope that going forward, we can weather the storm that we see before us. This being a holiday period, it has been relatively quiet time for the council. However, there have been significant developments in relation to one of our major projects. I am pleased to report that contracts have finally been issued on the Underhill Park development, and building work is due to commence on the 17th of January. This is a significant milestone for us as a council to achieve, and I think we should all congratulate ourselves that we have managed to overcome some significant obstacles and see this project over the line. It is important to remember, however, that there will still be other significant challenges that will be encountered in the final delivery of this project. But let us take heart that after some 20 years of waiting, the community will finally be getting a significant improvement to facilitate facilities to this much loved park. And I suppose this is the point that Ian, when I was talking about, I would like to take this opportunity to remind all councillors that when we take on the roles and responsibilities associated with our position within the community, we agree to and sign up to a code of conduct. This code of conduct applies to all councillors equally and in all situations. And if any councillor feels that for whatever reason they cannot adhere to this code, they should resign their position. Okay, any questions?
A very lovely speech.
Thank you very much, Rebecca Singh. Any other questions from the councillors? If not, then I will. We got a vote on this, Steve, suspending standing orders? You're on mute, Steve. You've muted everybody.
Vote to adjourn the meeting, Chair. Yeah.
Vote to adjourn the meeting. So all those in favour of adjourning the meeting to allow people from the floor to speak? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, if that is the case, I will suspend standing orders. And if people want to speak, can they please indicate by raising their hand? Are they able to do that, Steve? You're on mute again, Steve.
Sorry, they should be able to, Chair, yes.
Yeah, so as I said, I'm opening it to the floor now. I will give it 20 minutes or about 20 minutes. But in the first instance, we do have a question from Jason from Mumbles Skate Park Association. Is Jason here?
Yeah, I'm
Jason.
here.
Do you want to pose your question, Jason?
Hi, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. As stated in my email, we're concerned recently regarding allegations appearing on social media relating to the Llanderw skate park redevelopment, and we were approached by a member of association members and supporters with regard to this, asking for clarification on the current position. I'd be really grateful if the council could provide an update with regard to the redevelopment, specifically in relation to the land transfer, the current lottery funding application, and anticipated timescales for the build to commence. Thanks very much.
Okay. In response to that, I'm sorry, Jason, the only response that I can give to you at this point, and this is a legal response, is due to legal processes outside of our control and not directed at the MCC, we are unable to answer these questions at this time, and all further queries should be directed towards the City and County of Swansea. Any questions on that, Jason? I'm sorry about that.
No, thank you for looking into it and for preparing a response. In terms of the question, it was three-part. So there was the land transfer, the lottery funding, and the build. Not all of that sits within the remit of City and County, but is it the case that all of those would have to be pointed towards City and County?
All that I can say, I think I can say at the moment, is depending on the outcome with this process with City and County, that will have implications for the progress of the lot. But as far as
there are dependencies.
Pardon?
Because there are dependencies amongst them all, presumably.
Yeah, but as far as we're concerned, as Mumbles Community Council, we are progressing as normal until, but we've got to be dependent on what's coming from MCC, from City and County.
Okay, and the other thing I'd ask, I realise I'm taking up some time here, so I'll be as quick as I can. In terms of when you are in a position to progress, presumably there'll be some kind of statement, or certainly the Skate Park Association, as someone who's been supporting this and supporting MCC, will be informed as to progress.
Yes,
absolutely.
Straight away. I was hoping that we would be in a position by today, but unfortunately we're not. So that's why I've issued the statement that I have. But we will be, as soon as we hear anything, we will issue a public statement.
Okay, that's much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Michael Eames.
Thank you, Chair. I think you're probably aware of what I'm going to ask, as we've been in communication. But there's been some very serious allegations made against members of the council and the council in a whole recently in social media and possibly the press. I just wonder if there was any comment from the committee or the chairman. Thank you.
My response to that, Michael, is that if there are any complaints to be made against the council or against individual members, there are proper procedures to be followed to do that, i.e. the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales or Audit Wales. Accusations that are made via social media, anybody can make accusations via social media, And if we are going to deal with these accusations need to be made through the formal channels and dealt with in a formal fashion.
Thank you. I think the problem you're leaving yourself open to, though, as a council, social media now is probably the biggest news force in the world, is that if they're unanswered, then they're believed. So I think a response, either denying them or contesting them, should be forthcoming from the committee.
Well, as I was just alluding to, Michael, the thing is with social media, I think we all know this, anybody can put anything on social media. When it comes to any accusations like this, as I was making to the point to Councillor Scott earlier on, is any accusations need to have the opportunity for the person that the accusation has been made to reply to those accusations, and then for those accusations and the reply to be evaluated as to whether there's any substance to those things. I'm sure you were aware, Michael, that if Mumbles Community Council responded to every rumour, every notion and every little issue that came up on social media or in the rumour mill that goes on around Mumbles, we would spend our time dealing with those all the time rather than getting the business of running the community council done, which we are trying to do. And as I sort of said, there are formal processes available. And if anybody has got any issues that they want to raise, I would encourage them to go down those routes. Steve?
Chair, can I just underline that? I mean, as a council, we have no powers to investigate complaints about councillors by members of the public. All we can do is refer them to the Public Service of St Albans Wales's procedures. So,
Can I further ask then, Steve, if that's all right with the chair, if there is an investigation going on concerning these allegations, or they're just being...
No, there is an active investigation going on in relation to some of these, well, in relation to some of the issues, yes. But as I sort of said, and as I sort of said to Ian earlier on, because they're active investigations, I cannot comment at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Louise, did Pam, Carrie, did you? No, she's... Sorry, I thought I saw Carrie trying to come in. Louise Thomas?
Yeah, just to let you know, I have reported it. I don't lie. You know the kind of person I am. So I'm just going to leave it at that, okay? Because obviously you're saying that it's going to go down that formal investigation. That's fine, and that's what I want to see. I'm absolutely astounded. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Louise. Rebecca Fogarty?
Just like to ask, Chair, that if people did want to speak, it would be really lovely if they could turn on their cameras. This is already impersonal enough as it is, doing it on a screen, and hearing a disembodied voice is making it even worse. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Point taken. Okay, so are there any other points from the floor that people want to raise? Michael, is that a legacy hand of yours? You're on mute anyway. Okay. Okay then. If there are there any other points that people want to raise from the floor? If not, then thank you very much for that. So we will return back to the main body of the meeting now. And again, I thank all the members of the public for coming along to this meeting today. It's just fantastic to see such interest in the activities of Mumbles Community Council. Linda, are you trying to indicate that you want to speak? Sorry.
Yeah. I just want to make a point, if I may, that I think everybody knows that I just don't I don't go on social media. The reason I can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, the reason I don't go on social media is because I didn't want to be opened up to all this he said, she said, and all this abuse. I mean, I've had enough abuse with, I mean, people can email me, I can speak to my people, my residents, and this is one of the reasons I think over the last 2.5 years, it has got much worse. And that is one of the reasons why I am just resigning. Well, not resigning, but not standing for any elections this summer, because I just feel that it's just getting out of hand and I don't know how to respond in this age to this sort of abuse. So, so therefore, you know, you might not see me at any more meetings, but I just wanted to say that this is why I think this is lethal. Social media is very damaging and I just don't like it. So that's why I don't take part in it. That's all I want to say.
That's a very good point, Linda. I think that's very important. And I think people really do get, I really do think take social media far too seriously at times. It is what it is. It's got its good points, it's got its bad points. But, you know, as I sort of said, just because something is the topic of the day within a certain Facebook page or something like that, that doesn't mean it's the be all and end all. Sarah Keaton.
Hi, Martin. Yes, the last year or so, it's been hateful. And it's sad, really, because we've been managed to be quite reasonable with each other up until this point. So it's sad. It is sad. And I agree with Linda. It's soul destroying. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that, Linda. Will Thomas.
Hi, Chair. Just to say a couple of people have not muted their mics. It's given some feedback. That's all. Thanks.
That's a very good point as well. Yes. If people could mute them, I don't mute mine because I'm chairing the meeting. Richard Jarvis.
Yeah. Also, reiterating Councillor Tyler Lloyd's point again, yeah, social media can be very toxic. We know that. And something we all know has been proven time and time again. A lie can get halfway around the world before the truth gets its boots on. That goes back to something Michael Eames is saying about us getting out there with a reply to something. However, as you said, if we did that all the time, we'd just be permanent on social media. And for £120 a year, you know, even for the meetings I've been at today and things done last week, that's £1 an hour or something like that.
Good point, Richard. Good point. Okay, Pam.
Just to say that some of us are feeling a little bit handicapped because there are legal rules and regulations that we have to, and we do, and are having to adhere to. That's part of the job. If somebody says legally you've got to say nothing, then legally we are bound and we are committed to saying nothing, which makes life very difficult at times. But if we're told by our solicitors to shut up, then we've got to shut up.
Yeah, and I would make that point as well in relation to some of the things I've said earlier on. Part of the code of conduct is not commenting when you're told not to comment. And if you do comment, you have broken the code of conduct. And as I should have said, we've all got codes of conduct to adhere to. And if you feel you can't adhere to them, well, then really you shouldn't be a councillor. Okay. So if that's all dealt with, can we move on to, and as we said, thank everybody for their contributions. So if we move on to point 6, the financial report.
Okay, so you formally restarted the meeting, Chair. That's
Yes,
great.
sorry,
Thank you.
It did get a bit awkward there, yes, but we have formally restarted. We should have went back. Yeah, go on.
I know, and just for the record, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to obviously Paul has circulated his report. The first thing for you to look at, if that's okay, is to retrospectively approve the electronic payments that have been made.
Yeah.
Could you ask, Chair, that people could just show of hands to
show of hands
when
on
they're
that,
happy?
all that. I got a bit confused as to where it was in the thing pack, but never mind. I've worked it out now.
Can I interject, Chair?
Yes, certainly, Ian.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, it's in connection with the electronic payments. Primarily to do with the Smugs project, I think. We're talking about £12,000. Part of it is to do with seeds, bulbs, etc., landscaping and so on. Is this coming from the grant that was successful?
It is, Ian, yes.
Do we know how much is left of that money?
It's funny enough, we were looking at that today and we're just waiting a report from the RFO, but I can circulate that to all councillors, or certainly to you as soon as that's ready, Ian.
Yeah, it's just that it would seem as if there's been a certain dilution of the certain parts of the project. And bearing in mind we're meant to be a plastic-free Mumbles, why is it we've gone and put in a pre-formed plastic so-called pond?
Okay, Carrie, do you want to come back on that, and then I'll bring Rebecca Singh in?
Yeah, just very quickly to say the total grant was about £40,000, so there's about £28,000 left. We haven't claimed it all yet. We've only claimed the first part, which is about 19,000, but as soon as that has been spent, we can draw down the remaining part of the grant, so there's sufficient left. In terms of the pond, sometimes you have to do things that perhaps are not the most ideal, but we needed to have something which was robust, which was long lasting, and which was least likely to be damaged, and would you know, stay the course of something that's a public area.
Okay. Rebecca Singh.
Yes, stay the course, even if it's really. Well, coming off Ian's comments about grads and such like, nothing like the 40,000 for that, but I did remember for the meeting that I still have my £1,000 councillor grant from the winter to spend. I have tried to spend it, haven't had much help. I was going to ideally give it over to some wildlife or stuff for the parks in my ward, as there seems to be support for that, so I'd appreciate some help after the meeting. I'll send out some emails to get that spent before May when it disappears. But £1,000 is still there, just to let you know.
Okay. Thank you for that, Rebecca Singh.
Can I just reiterate, I mean, any of the officers will help. You know, all of us are here to help with that sort of expenditure and getting quotes and so on, so please don't hesitate to contact us.
Okay, Rebecca Fogarty.
Thanks. Just a couple of points for clarification on that specific point, Steve. Am I right in thinking that those need to be spent by the end of March because they fall into a financial year rather than a electoral year?
Yes, ideally, although we can carry them on like we do with some of the things that don't quite get paid in that year to earmark them as long as we know that they're going to be spent. I think by the time you make your budget decision on the 26th, you will need to know who's going to spend it and who isn't. I think it's the most important thing.
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, I'll get on those emails again, then have another bar.
And then my second, point for clarification was, it's not like me not to be able to spot a figure, but I'm struggling to see where the 12,000 is reported in the finance report. I can see specific Smugs items, but they don't come to anywhere near 12,000. Is that a running total? It's not from just this month, is it?
The figure came from Ian, so I
question to Ian then.
Ian.
My word, I'm going to be asked the question, am I? Yep. That makes a change. Okay. The ballpark figure of 12,000. The AO landscapes, they've been paid in excess of £10,000, and then there are others then that you know, the seeds and the bulbs, etc. So it comes to around about £12,000. If you look at the electronic payments, you should see it. If you look for AO landscapes, you'll see that is the bulk of it. And then when you £900 and odd for a greenhouse, And when Councillor Jones talks about, you know, the protection of a plastic preformed pond, I would have thought, I know Rhino have got a very good name for greenhouses. And additionally, the shed, it doesn't look as if that's going to last for terribly long. So anyway, I don't want to be sound as a whinger. I'm just pointing it out. I've asked a question. And
Okay,
thanks, Ian. Yeah, I'm struggling to see the landscapers this month, but it must just be me. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot. Pam, did you want to come in or something? But
sorry, I
move on this.
It's been answered, and thank you to Rebecca Singh for bringing it up, because that's what I wanted to ask as well. Thanks, Rebecca.
Okay. So if there are no other questions, can I put that to the vote to that we accept the recommendations? Tim, are you voting or? Yeah, okay. All those in favour? Yeah. Passed.
Okay, there's the second stage of the report, Chair, is regarding Underhill and the borrowing period. You'll have all read Paul Biden's recommendation that this be changed from 10 years to 15 years, the loan period, so that the increased amount is more or less covered within that, and therefore it's fairer on succeeding councils. Yeah. So do you want?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that one. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could put that to the vote, Chair.
Okay, if anybody's got any questions on that before I go ahead. If not, can I put it down? Ian, has you got a question?
Can I just confirm that that's not been sent out, Clark? You're just mentioning it now. I didn't see that in the paperwork.
It is. It's on the finance report.
It's there, is it?
Item 5 of Paul's report, Underhill redevelopment loan borrowing period.
Okay. While I'm at that subject, I note it was very kind of Councillor Rob Stewart to visit Underhill and have a presentation with Councillor Marshall about the provision of the 3G pitch. Is that going to impact on the progress of Underhill, or are we going to have an earlier 3G pitch? Because I do notice the timeline was 5 years. You know, I don't think we can afford to wait for 5 years.
On that one, Ian, you know, that video clip was from 5 years ago. I know it's been in the newspaper today. We did issue a statement when we funded Underhill for what we did, that we have a commitment to try and fund the all-weather pitch. We've only just got it over the line as it is now. As I said, building work starts next week. We need to do some work on looking at how we can maybe identify or find some funding, and working with MCA and City and County of Swansea to fund that, to fund the all-weather pitch. But I really don't think we can really say one way or the other just at the moment, because we've only just taken the funding away from the main funding package to fund the main body of work, and that's the situation that we're in.
Okay.
Okay. So, okay, are we okay to vote on that? All those in favour of moving the funding to 15 years? I think it would be fairer, yes. Okay, that's recorded as accepted. Steve?
Lovely. And then just a vote to note the rest of the report, if you could, Chair.
Okay, and note the rest of the report from Paul. In favour? Thank you for that.
I'll make it just a comment, Chair.
Yeah, certainly will.
Thanks. I mean, obviously it's up for future councils and ourselves as well, but I think just a timely point to mention here is that I think rather than carrying large amounts of cash in the bank and if, for example, projects don't go forward in other years and, you know, people put things in the budget that don't materialize, I think as long as the early repayment charge is non-existent or very, very negligible, I think that we should be paying off that loan sooner when possible. It's just a comment, and for us to all keep in the back of our minds moving forward. Thank you.
No, I think that's a very prudent point, Will, to be honest, because, you know, a lot of the time you can end up paying more in interest on some of these loans. I know it's maybe not the case at the moment, but it can be. You end up paying a lot more in interest, when if we've got the money, it's better that we pay off these loans rather than sit on it. But yes, I think that should be noted, and it's a very opposite point.
Can I just interrupt? I know Paul took that into account, and there is ability to do that. So that was part of the RFO's thinking, that was an option. What the RFO was saying, let's keep things open for future council, as open as possible for them to make the choices, you know.
Yeah. Okay. So if we move on to point 7, the digital archive. Our project manager of Gower and Earth be instructed to commission a video depicting the history of the development of Underhill Park, to include interviews and footage of the new build process at a cost of no more than £1,000. Will, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. And just firstly, the reason why this obviously would usually go to committee, for example, Rob's committee, but obviously because of the fact that we're hopefully starting work next week with builders on site, I think it's very important that we get the footage of the building as it is. So if that's going to be a question, hopefully that clears that up. The reason why it's sort of not bypassed the committee but been rushed to here. The idea of the digital archive is obviously to capture people and the whole part of Mumbles in audio form, video form, and photographs, and put them on the archive. And the whole idea is that we have some footage from before the build, some vox pops of, you know, the key members of this council, MCA, and all the clubs, football, rugby, and any other clubs that take part down there, that we bring all that together, and it's almost like a documentary of the build. And the idea is that this video would be done over a couple of years. It wouldn't be released anytime soon. So it's just capturing footage at this point, really, and having having that footage that we can make the mini documentary, I suppose, at the end. So any questions, happy to answer them.
Okay. Rob Marshall.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, obviously I support the digital archive project, because it was in fact myself and Will who brought it to full council to actually form a digital archive a couple of years ago. The one thing that concerns me about this, obviously I realise the urgency of time because the build starts next week. I would like this resolution worded something slightly differently, because we have at the moment tendered for videographers for the digital archive, who've been treated appallingly by the committee, I must add, and not one of them has been appointed yet. Now, I don't think we can actually put this in the hands of our archivers when we haven't even played ball by our videographers, which their tender was supposed to be in by last Christmas, the end of last December, as in 2020. It's now 2022, and we still haven't appointed anybody, even though the timeline has been extended and extended, and messages have been ignored and ignored, and payments. And I think before we approve this, we need to put in some sort of clause that saying whoever is going to start on this video before next week hasn't necessarily been appointed as a videographer. I think it's up for the council to appoint the videographer, not the archivers, because we tendered for videographers before we tendered for archivers.
Right, if I could just explain, Rob, maybe it's a bit confusing on the agenda point, so apologies for that, but it's not the archivers or the committee, it's the, so the idea is that, as you say, right, we put out a tender in the past to do 3 videos, okay? And maybe that was too laborsome for our officers, maybe there was too much work needed, but as you say, the communication channels with the officers was lacking, and obviously that wasn't a very easy project, we say. So the whole idea is to avoid that situation again, we put it in the hands of the company that's been appointed to manage the digital archive project. So the company who are running the digital archive is a company called Gower Unearthed. They won the tender. Yeah, they won the tender for that. And part of their role is to organize things like this for us. So basically it takes the management of that, exactly what went wrong last time, as you suggest, so it's learning from that and saying, right, well, MCC is not going to do the tender for the video. That's down to them. Whoever they want to use to do the video is up to them. And it's also to manage that video and get all the right content and upload it to YouTube, all that stuff that was a barrier in the past, hopefully will now be fixed because Gower Unearthed, who are managing the digital archive, will manage that process. So it addresses all your points, really.
Well, apart from the fact that, you know, we've shortlisted and commissioned work of 3 local videographers, and
Different
now
project, yeah.
And who've been treated appallingly, and I will use that word, and now we're not even appointing any one of them via our council, which is the democratic way of doing it, is through the council. I think before we give the rights over to Gower Unearthed, that's Helen and Bev, who I know very well, I think we need to make a decision on who our videographer for the council for this project is going to be.
Well, if we want to micromanage everything, yes. But when someone applies to do our Christmas lights, we don't tell them what electricians they have to use, do we? It's it's the same sort of thing. If we are giving the management of something to a company, then we don't have the luxury then of saying you have to use this person. You know?
Well, I think it's just transparency, really, isn't it?
When we did do that, Rob, it didn't work, as you mentioned earlier, because we didn't have that process. So we can't. That's why we're not doing it again that way. That's why I don't think we should do it again that way.
Oh,
I think that's better. You think?
Okay, can I just bring in Rebecca Fogarty and then Carrie, and then I think I'll try to sum things up a little bit.
Thanks, Martin. My question, just because I'm not as familiar with Gower Unearthed, is how they will decide who the key people are to interview, and what advice they will get. I would hope they would get some advice from the clerk, having been involved in the full breadth, because I'm really conscious that there have been a lot of key people over the years, and will they all get, fair, equal treatment? That's my concern.
Yeah, I mean, my answer to that would be, by all means, that you could welcome to put any names forward, and I don't see why anyone can't be interviewed who doesn't want to be, really. Once Gower Unearthed have got the project, we've obviously got the Digital Archive Committee, which meets sporadically, and that will be one of the topics that's brought up. What is the storyline of this Underhill video? So at the moment, the rush here is we need the footage of the building the way it is, right? What comes later on, as you say, is right, who's going to be interviewed? When are they going to be interviewed? Members from MCA, members from the rugby club, members from the community council, representative members from all these organisations. And we put the ball in the organisations court there, and I think, and say to MCA, right, who do you want to be on camera for this? And the rugby club and the football club, and we say the same things. So that's what I'd say to that, but that comes a bit later. The only reason we're in a rush with this is just to get some footage of the building and the way it is, really.
Okay, good. Can I bring Carrie in now, please?
Yeah, I suppose I'm sort of suggesting an amendment to the proposal, in that we we add an amendment that says that in the first instance that those videographers who have currently submitted tenders should be those who are prioritized to be interviewed in terms of actually taking on this project, because it does seem grossly unfair that they put in a lot of work and nothing happens. So if we can include in it that Gower Unearth be instructed to commission a video from whoever the various videographers are who have submitted tenders, and that only if for some reason they are unable or unsuitable to do it should further people be considered.
Go out a sec. Yeah, I mean, that's not a problem. I mean, it gives the people that did come back to the tender a fair crack of the whip, as you say. Stop it, Susan. Stop it. Sorry, I'm getting a whoopee cushion thrown at me, and I'm being asked to blow up a whoopee cushion. Great timing, isn't it? Excuse me. So yeah, I mean that's not a problem. We can certainly.
That undermines credibility, doesn't it, really? Right. So just to sum up, as I see this year, the big thing is the big thing that we got here is this building work is going to commence on Monday, and we need somebody there to be filming that building work on Monday, and we need somebody to be filming it professionally. So bearing in mind what Will sort of says there, personally, I can't see any problem with the amendment that Carrie suggests, because maybe that would be the way to satisfy both sides of the discussion that we've had here.
Yep.
Chair, can I, sorry to interrupt. Can I just suggest the wording, because I've been typing away, which gets the essence.
That's what you're there for, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, just to confirm, what it was people were paid to produce a video, and it was considered that from the people that were commissioned and were paid to do those videos, that we would probably choose one to become our regular videographer. So all I've done is that the amendment reads that our project manager, Gower Unearth, be instructed to commission a video from one of the videographers previously engaged, and so on.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. So can I put that to the vote? Have anybody's got anything else to add? So I put the. Have you got something else to add, Rob? Are you voting?
I'm voting.
All right. Okay, so if I put the amendment to the vote in the first instance, that's Carney's amendment as recounted by Steve, that it goes to the videographers that have already submitted via the thing. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Do we have to vote on the main motion now, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favour of the main motion? Yeah, okay. Carried. Okay. So then we go on to the second one then. That a project manager, Gower Unearth, be instructed to commission further interviews with key prominent local people at a cost of no more than 1,500. What's on us there?
Do you want me to speak to that?
Yeah, go on quickly.
This was obviously put in because it's a similar thing. We are applying for a lottery grant, which heritage lottery grant, which is active at the moment, waiting to hear back on a much larger project, which involves many local history videos and interviews with prominent local people about their stories and life in Mumbles, content, and trying to get people to bring in their pictures and things like that into the library, where they'll be scanned and added to the digital archive, which will probably hopefully be released in about a year or so once it's got a good amount of content on it. We're working with Swansea University. I think Gower and Earthlot have got a meeting with Swansea University, I think maybe tomorrow or this week sometime anyway. So, but they're obviously, you know, dealing with all that. This really is, while we wait for this lottery bid to go through, there's obviously people who are rather old who unfortunately, you know, aren't going to stay with us forever. And there's a few people who we've already, unfortunately, who I would have loved to have been part of the archive, who are no longer with us. So it's really to prioritize, you know, if we wait 2 or 3 months, then some people we might not be able to capture their stories, basically. So it's about continuing what we've done with some audio history in the area.
So just to clarify this, Bill, from my point of view, so this is just generally people in the community, not specifically about Underhill Park.
Correct. Yes. There's a list. There's a list of people that I haven't got it to hand, but there's a list of people that any councillor or anyone from the community, I suppose, could, you know, contact Steve and say, I think we should, you know, interview this person. They've been a big part of the community, blah blah blah, and the team will then put them on the list and try and, you know, sit them down and maybe walk around with them as well and ask them their story of the village and what they remember and what they did and things like that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Will. Any other questions? Any other questions on this? Anybody want to know anything more? If not, can I put it to the vote? All those in favour? That's passed then. Okay, thank you very much for that. That's great. So if I move on to point 8, which is the festive lighting for Newton Road. Quote for £15,670 from Centregrade Limited to provide new festive festoon lighting, Newton Road be accepted. Using funds from C2C22 festoon lighting Newton Road. Proposed by Councillor Reason, who's not here.
Chair, can I just advise council that if someone puts a proposal on the agenda and can't be at the meeting themselves, it doesn't mean that you can't discuss it. It just needs someone now to formally propose it. So if someone's willing to do that on behalf of PIP, that would be helpful.
Well, I'll do that as joint chair of the Culture Committee then.
Okay.
Can I also, thanks Rob, can I also add that Pip's been in contact with me today when he passed on his apologies and asked that it be amended, the wording be amended, be accepted, and then on the proviso that all permissions are in place.
Yeah.
That's because when the history of it is when the Community Council have done this a couple of times, provided these lights, and previously it was for the Chamber of Commerce. So we just provided the money and it was done, and they dealt with all the permissions. But PIP suddenly realised that we haven't, because these are going on all the shop frontages, that we would need to make sure that all permissions were in place. Claire has been working on that, and he's been working closely with Paul Whitaker from Mumbles Traders. So he's helping us greatly get those permissions. So hopefully that will be very quickly done now. But we wanted to make sure, Pip wanted to make sure that amendment was put on the agenda.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions or anything else they want to add? If not, can I put it then straight to the vote? Or I've got to put the amendment to the vote first, is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, yes.
So if we put the amendment to the vote first, i.e. about the permissions being obtained in the first instance. All those in favour? Okay. And then the main proposal, all those in favour? That's passed again, Steve. So if I move on to point 9, questions to chair the Community and Social Development Committee. Any questions? Questions to the chair of the Finance and Compliance Committee, who to my knowledge isn't here today. Are there any questions though? No. Questions to the chair of the Environmental Committee? Will Thomas?
Yeah, just a quick one. If we had another location where a pond might be nice, like for wildlife, could we put that forward to you and you consider it?
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, we'd welcome that. Well,
thanks. I'll send you an email. Cheers. Thanks.
Always great for wildlife ponds and stuff like that. Yep, great. Any further questions for the chair of the Environmental Committee? If not, we'll move on to the questions for the chair of the Culture, Tourism and Communications Committee. No. Right. So now we move on to recommendations from the Personnel Committee. Review the staffing structure of the council. Right. Now, I chaired this committee. We met the other day where we considered the report from Paul Egan from One Voice Wales. I will raise a number of points that came up in the meeting, just so people are aware of the context. If you've had a chance to have a look at the report from Paul Egan from One Voice Wales, there was some discussion and, if you like, confusion, for want of a better word, in relation to, I'm trying to look at the point. Yeah, in relation to the fourth point, recommended that the council consider creating a new post of events assistant that could be directly linked to the role of general office assistant, which would enable greater practical support be available in relation to events management, and also seek to achieve the council presence at the Ostrom Centre to support enhanced interaction with residents and visitors. This would serve to create improved accessibility to residents and also to assist with the tourism agenda, and the office could form the basis for a tourist information bureau. Just to fill in, I recorded there were 6 councillors in presence. I recorded the vote that 3 abstained, 2 voted in favour, and 1 wasn't available to vote. I discussed this with the chair afterwards, and he advised me, because we had 2 in favour, that the vote would carry in that instance. Also, the person who didn't vote contacted me afterwards the following morning and said that he felt that he had voted, but that I hadn't registered the vote. Or I hadn't viewed the vote, which I'm quite happy to raise my hands and sort of say, well, maybe I didn't, because you know, it's a bit difficult sometimes on these things. So I just wanted to raise those points. If there's anything else, Sarah, did you want to come in?
yeah, I thought at the time, as I said at the time, I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but what about Elaine at Ostrom? Because she's very efficient, and I thought she could work with Claire, and we have to employ Elaine anyway, don't we, if we're right? And it would save us employing someone else, because there are periods of where there isn't that much work needed. I know it gets crazy around Mumblesfest, but not so much the rest of the time. The other thing I suggested was, why don't we work with local university? There's lots of young people who'd love to have the chance for media to do something and get that experience, and we'd be helping that community, and we wouldn't be employing someone else as well. As just a thought.
No, okay, that's exactly what this forum is for you to your views.
Thank you.
Ian Scott.
Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. No, I would concur with what Councillor Keaton has suggested in utilising the services of Elaine, bearing in mind that certain discussions have taken place with the Austrian Association, and I think we should possibly consider actually speaking with Elaine to see if she would be interested in taking it. Let's not assume that she would be, but I think it's a route that we could explore, and that's what I would suggest.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Ian. I'll just work my way across, so I'm not taking anybody in any particular order, all right? It's just a few people got your hands up. So Carrie next.
Yes, it was a point that I raised, and that was the reason I abstained. Is, well, the two reasons were, one, that under the discussions with OCA, there is the potential that Elaine will be employed directly by MCC. Therefore, this would seem to be duplicating much of the work that role would already be doing. I also feel that the focus is the wrong way round. That if there is a post to be created, it needs to be a general office assistant who at times and when needed would also support the marketing and events officer, because there isn't a need for an events officer the whole year round, but there is a need for someone who is based in the office doing general office work. But the most important thing is, I feel, you know, we have someone potentially who we are going to be employing who's ideally placed, and it seems pointless that we find ourselves with two people appointing two people doing exactly the same work.
Okay, thank you very much. Rob?
Yeah, I'll say exactly what I said at the personnel meeting last week. You know, first of all, we are following recommendations of Paul Egan, and Paul has been asked specifically about an events person. So to answer a couple of questions, you know, Elaine, we can't assume is going to be interested in that post as that. Now, one of the reasons we haven't had all the events that we wanted to have is because of COVID, and because we haven't been able to have them anyway. So, you know, the focus on it being events rather than officer is because, like Paul Egan, I have seen Claire close to breaking point over the amount of work she's had to do, because she does not just her job, but she's been doing other people's jobs as well. Now, the reason that we're discussing this is because what was on the table from Paul Egan, what his suggestions are, based on how our council is being run at the moment and how short-staffed we are on certain things. I think that I'll answer Sarah's question. Giving students is good, but I think for short-term projects rather than permanent projects. We've been bitten once with employing a student who turned out to be not have their heart in it and let us down very badly. At the end of the day, we're a professional organisation. We're not here to give people chances. We're here to employ people who can actually do the job. And that's it. And that's why I support Paul's recommendation for an events assistant as it stands. Thanks.
Thank you. Rebecca Fogarty.
Thanks, Martin. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the way this conversation is going in a public forum, if I'm honest. Reading the recommendations as they are in the agenda, I can understand why they've been split the way they have in terms of when the proposal is that we exclude press and public, because we do want to have as much of this conversation, you know, in a public forum as possible. But this has just indicated that as soon as you scratch under the surface, you know, we're talking about particular individuals, we're talking about them potentially changing employer, potentially changing job description. As Ian and others have said, those people haven't yet been approached. So I'm really uncomfortable having this conversation in public. Having had a look at the recommendations, there are a couple that are purely procedural. I would suggest recommendation 3 about the delegation schedule, and the last recommendation of that section, which is about the email signature. And the time off in lieu policy. I would suggest that we discuss those in open forum, but I would propose that we move the excluding press and public earlier. It's not to hide what we're discussing, it's just to protect the individuals that we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rebecca. It is a good point, and as you sort of said, this is the issue that we have. I think sometimes it's difficult to know when to exclude the public and the press, because it only sometimes comes up actually in the discussion. When it is appropriate to exclude the press and the public, and of course, then we get accused by certain people then of doing things behind closed doors, like. So anyway, Pam, did you want to say anything?
Yes, wanting to back up what Rebecca's just said, I was thinking I was getting really uncomfortable about what was being said. I back Carrie up in that I think what we need first and foremost is an office manager who also helps out at events. But isn't it a rule that any new employee we get has to be, put out a tender, for want of a better phrase, and it has to be an open public vacancy that's announced, and anybody has the chance to go for it. We are not allowed just to pick and choose who we want to employ. I wonder if the clerk could clarify that, please.
Steve?
Yes, in general principle, what you say is correct. Yes, I think it's much the safest way that we do that. And we've been talking about how best to do it, get someone independent in as well to be part of the panel and so on. Yes, so yeah, I agree with what you say, Pam.
Thank you.
Will, did you want to come in on this? I think you were going to back up what Rebecca said, I think.
Yeah, no, it was exactly the same. Rebecca covered it, thanks.
Okay. So bearing in mind what Rebecca says, what Rebecca suggested, so if we can vote on point 3, that it is recommended the council consider adopting a delegation schedule to support officers making decisions on their behalf. All those in favour? Okay. The point 7, that all staff create a signature with their emails providing details of their weekly availability and a mobile phone that they can be contacted on during designated working times. All those in favour? Did you say one other, Rebecca?
Yeah, it was the one before that, which is the time off in lieu policy.
Yeah. Recommended that the council consider introducing a time off in lieu policy based on the model appended to the report. I think that's straightforward. All those in favour? Okay, then. So then if we vote on excluding members of the press and public to discuss the further points. All those in favour? Okay, Steve, can you do accordingly? Thanks everybody for your time.